What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at X-Men Apocalypse, the sequel to Days of Futures Past, and the overall ninth installment into the X-Men film franchise. This is the final film to be directed by Bryan Singer. Okay, let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. Upon its release in 2016, X-Men Apocalypse was very, very divided amongst the fan base. You either like this movie or you hate this movie. I fall in the camp of people who enjoy this movie for what it is, but also acknowledge that it has a lot of gaping problems. So without any further ado, let's illustrate the pros and the cons. Pros. The cast in this movie, I like it. McAvoy and Fassbender, they once again reprise their roles as Charles Xavier and Magneto, and as always, and as usual, these two kill it in these roles. They're meant to play these characters. They fit them like a glove. I particularly like Michael Fassbender's performance in this movie. We finally get to see Magneto live a normal life, and while he's living that normal life, he still gets persecuted. And not only does he get persecuted, he gets persecuted for doing the right thing by saving a co-worker. And by him saving somebody, that led to the town that he's living in Poland to pretty much come against him and inadvertently kill his wife and child, the family that he started, the family that he had formed within the 10-year gap between this movie and Days of Futures Past. He tried to live by Charles's example, and for a while it was working, but a happenstance accident happened, and Magneto gets crucified for it. And I like how this breaks the character of Eric Lehnsherr even more. Like, he legitimately tried to be a good person, to be a good friend and neighbor, and even that wasn't enough. And the human race still rallies against him in his mind. I just think Michael Fassbender's performance in this movie is top-notch. The scene where he loses his family is completely gut-wrenching and beautifully directed. I love it. I think it's a great scene. In terms of James McAvoy as Professor X, he's nearly fully formed as to how we see him in the 2000 X-Men. He's back to being the mentor to everyone. I mean, the 1980s hairstyle is very out of place on Professor X. He looks like a yuppie. But now, and of course, if you know the context of the First Class, these characters are getting close to their 50s and 60s, and yet they don't look a day over 30. Go figure. A little bit of age makeup goes a long way. But in terms of the performance, I like McAvoy's Professor X this time around. I think he has a lot of cool scenes. I particularly like the stuff where he has interactions with Apocalypse, but that comes towards the end of the movie. When you get to the second act and to the third act, that's where I think McAvoy's performance is really, really top notch, and I like the on-screen chemistry with him and Oscar Isaacs as these two budding foes. So yeah, no complaints with James McAvoy's return in his now third outing as the character. Just as good, it never fails. Once again, Nicholas Hoult returns as Beast, and he's always good in the role of Beast. I don't really think Beast gets a whole lot to do in this movie, to be quite honest with you. He's kind of just there in a lot of scenes, but he does have some cool moments, especially when you get to the third act. When you get to the third act of the film. So yeah, seeing Beast is cool. Jennifer Lawrence returns as Mystique. Now, I appraised her performances in First Class and Days of Futures Past, where I thought she was actually really, really good. But in X-Men Apocalypse, this is where you start to see Jennifer Lawrence turn on the no gives a shit mode in terms of her acting. Like, there are certain moments in this movie where she's good, and there are other moments in this movie where you can tell that she's just sleepwalking through her scenes and would rather be any place but where she is right now, which is a shame, because the First Class continuity of the X-Men franchise is really building Mystique up as like the potential leader of the group, and it can go either way as to how you like that. I mean, some will be like, hey, that's pretty interesting, that's pretty unique. Others will be like, it kind of sucks. For me, I'm indifferent to it. I never hated Mystique as a character. I kind of liked her. Always thought she was cool. But she never struck me as somebody who's a team player. Mystique never struck me as a team player. She's always been more out for herself. And when for the people who she chooses to be loyal to. That's always been Mystique to me. Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique, her Mystique is they're trying way too hard to make her into a full-fledged hero, and it just doesn't fit her modus operandi. And I kind of think Jennifer Lawrence's performance, is affected by that, because Jennifer Lawrence doesn't have this commanding on-screen presence, if you will, as a leader. Now, listen, I've never seen The Hunger Games, so I don't know anything about. So I don't know how good she is in those movies. I've never seen them, so I can't judge them. I'm just judging by what I see in this movie. And to me, Jennifer Lawrence, she doesn't have the commanding leadership presence that this movie wants Mystique to have. And to me, it kind of makes her performance very, very lopsided, where some scenes she's pretty good, other scenes she looks like she's bored. So Jennifer Lawrence, her performance in this movie, very middling at best. Oscar Isaacs, who plays Apocalypse, who is the villain of the piece. I like Oscar Isaacs as an actor. I actually enjoyed his performance as Apocalypse. I think Apocalypse could have been much more better written. At the end of the day, Apocalypse comes across as a villain who just wants to destroy the world and then take over it. But it's really nothing really to go, and that creates this high stakes conflict that the X-Men now have to try and stop. You could have done more with Apocalypse and like really delve into the history of him being the first mutant. You know, this is En Sabanor. This is the first ancient mutant. You know, his story, he as a character should mean more. There should be more to it than what this movie provided with us. It gave us little snippets here and there. Oscar Isaacs is clearly putting on a damn good performance as the character. There's a lot of scenes where he comes across as to me, he can come across as very menacing and just very intimidating. And the scenes that he has with Professor X are some of my favorite scenes in this movie. I think Isaacs and Mcavoy have very good on-screen chemistry with one another. And that's where Apocalypse, to me, comes across as a threat. I also enjoy the scenes where he's recruiting his horsemen. I like the scene where he recruits Magneto in the factory. I enjoy the scene where he recruits Angel to Metallica's Four Horsemen. Side note, Rose Byrne from First Class also returns in this film, and she gets visited by Charles and Havoc as a way to get more information at the details of Apocalypse and the incidents that took place in Egypt when Apocalypse was awakened. Rose Byrne in this movie as Moira McTaggart is just there as like a hello for the fans, and since this is a third story in a trilogy that began with First Class, she's pretty much back here to rekindle the love interest, the romance she had with Charles, which eventually happens when he gives her back his memories. So, yeah, take that for what you will. In addition to recruiting, Magneto and Angel, he also recruits Psylocke, who is hanging around with Caliban, who makes a brief cameo in this movie. And then he recruits Storm. Storm in this movie is played by Alexandra Shipp. She's a younger actress. She's a thief living in Cairo. She comes across Apocalypse after she gets attacked by a group of thugs. Apocalypse inadvertently saves her life, and then Apocalypse recruits her, giving her some purpose. But it's established that Storm is a admirer of Mystique. This movie plays the fact that Mystique has become like this martyr figure. After the events of Days of Futures Past, where she saves the president and stops Magneto, Mystique's being built as like this martyr, like this symbol of mutant rights. And again, take it for what you will. I think you could have other mutants could have fit the bill more. Like Xavier could have fit this bill more than Mystique can. Like I said, Mystique. This movie tries to prop Mystique on a pedestal, and it just feels just awkward, especially since this entire movie kind of goes against the character development that she went through in First Class and Days of Futures Past. And in this movie, Mystique kind of feels like she's still doing the same character arc over and over again. It just barely grows and progresses. But that's my piece on that. Again, Storm, the whole idea of her idolizing Mystique, like her having a mutant to idolize, okay, that's pretty cool. Having Apocalypse come in and pretty much unleash Storm's true potential, okay, that's interesting. I mean, I think it was kind of hokey that he gave her white hair. Why couldn't she just have white hair to begin with? Why do we have to see Apocalypse give her the white hair? That just comes across as very hokey and cartoony to me. But yeah, Storm, she does have her moments. She's not the most interesting character out of this entire movie, but she does have a little mini arc, I guess. No, she gets recruited by Apocalypse, and then at the end of the movie, she joins the X-Men after seeing the true damage that Apocalypse is doing to the world. That's what she kind of has a change of heart and be like, okay, no. So yeah, no, Storm in this movie, she's okay. Psylocke, she's a waste of space. I don't know why Psylocke's in this movie. She adds absolutely nothing. Olivia Munn, she looks good in costume, but that's pretty much it. Psylocke does absolutely nothing for me. Angel, again, I love the scene of him being recruited to Metallica's Four Horsemen, but as a character, Angel's really useless. Like, he doesn't do anything in this movie but die at the end. I mean, yeah, he has a couple of cool scenes, like the opening scene of Angel and Nightcrawler having a cage fight. That's mildly entertaining. But aside from that, Angel doesn't do anything in this movie. We don't get a chance to know who Angel is. The Last Stand version of Angel had more character development and depth than this version of Angel. Take that for what you will. It's not really a good thing. But yeah, the introduction of the Four Horsemen. Some of them are done really well, like Magneto, and to an extent Storm, and then others they're just kind of useless and wasteless and just a waste of space. And really, I mean, yeah, we need Angel needs his arc. I mean, Apocalypse needs the Archangel, but at least give me something for Angel as a character. I mean, to me, Ben Hardy is just wasted in the role that doesn't really even come close to utilizing any of his talents, except giving him a couple of brief, cool moments here and there. But that's pretty much it. Now we get to the inclusion of the more recognizable X-Men in this movie, the younger versions. We get to see a younger version of Nightcrawler, played by Cody Smith-McPhee. I thought Cody McPhee was really good as the character of Nightcrawler. He got the personality down pat. I like how he gives his character an innocence to him, and as somebody who wants to explore the world a little bit, especially when it gets to the X-Mansion. I thought McPhee really did a good job portraying the character of Nightcrawler, not wanting him to be someone who's into violence, and also playing up the religious aspects of the character. McPhee, to me, did a good job. I like the interactions with Mystique, a nice little nod, since Mystique is the mother of Nightcrawler. You know, there's a good portion of the first half of the movie where Nightcrawler and Mystique are pretty much teaming up together. I like that stuff. I thought that was actually pretty cool, and a nice little wink to comic book fans. We get to see Cyclops in this movie, Scott Summers. Not a big fan that they have Alex Summers being the older brother of Scott Summers. I prefer it the traditional way, but it's fun to see Scott Summers. This is the first X-Men movie to finally do something with Cyclops and Scott Summers. You're giving him a little bit of an arc. I like how he starts off as this rebellious hothead, so to speak. But as the movie progresses, he slowly starts to form into the leader that he eventually becomes. And I actually thought Ty Sheridan did an overall decent job playing the character. I liked him as Cyclops, and I wouldn't mind seeing him come back in the MCU once the mutants get rebooted. I think Sheridan can still contribute to the character of Cyclops in a rebooted timeline with the MCU, because I enjoyed his performance. I liked it a lot. We also get Jean Grey. She plays a big role in this movie. She's played by Sophie Turner. I'm not familiar with Sophie Turner as an actress. I don't watch Game of Thrones. In this movie, she was okay. Her and Sheridan don't really have the world's greatest on-screen chemistry with one another, which is very, very critical, because Cyclops and Jean are a romantic couple, and their relationship is very important to overall X-Men lore. Though, I'm not going to lie, there are some moments where their on-screen chemistry is pretty good, and there are other moments where it can just feel off in some areas. No, that's just me personally. I like the scenes of Xavier, trying to keep Jean under control, because he senses the great power that's within her. He senses that the great power within Jean. We all know it's the Phoenix Force, and we see that come out in the third act of the movie, where she ultimately eradicates Apocalypse. But yeah, Jean Grey in this movie, she's okay. We also see Jubilee. She has a little appearance in this movie. That's cool. Evan Peters once again returns as Quicksilver, and he has yet another iconic scene, saving an exploding X-Mansion to Sweet Dreams by the Rhythmics. It's a fun scene. It's a cool scene. I mean, it's tonally very, very jarring that we go from this destructive scene that sees the death of Havoc, Alex Summers, and then we get into a very light-hearted scene with Quicksilver saving everybody. Like, it's a tonal mess. I mean, that's this movie's big problem, is that it could be a tonal mess in a lot of areas. There are certain scenes where this movie is really trying to push the limit, and then there are other scenes where it goes into almost self-parody in a way, like with the Quicksilver scene. And then immediately after that, we get a scene where the mutants are being kidnapped by Stryker. Of course, an X-Men movie once again shoehorns Stryker into the plot. And this is just to get the Wolverine cameo. They all go to Alkali Lake. They release Weapon X, Wolverine. He goes completely gonzo berserk on everybody. I'll give Apocalypse this. They finally gave us Wolverine in berserker rage mode, and it was a hell of a lot of fun to see. We get to see blood splatter on the walls. We get to see him go completely ballistic and ape shit on everyone. I mean, I think this is probably one of Hugh Jackman's best cameos in the X-Men movie lore. Probably second to First Class. But yeah, even though I think again, we forced a Stryker appearance in this movie, and he was just there to get them to Alkali Lake, so that way they can get their jump shoots and the jets and get over to the final battle, which they eventually do. We get to the final battle. Apocalypse is destroying the world. Magneto, he's fully ingrained in Apocalypse's ways, but you can also sense the conflict within him. He eventually turns against Apocalypse, joins up with the X-Men. They all save the day. Apocalypse gets obliterated once Jean Grey unleashes her Phoenix Force. Apocalypse gets obliterated. We then get the epilogue scene, which is a nice little homage to the ending of the first X-Men movie. We see the X-Men in the Danger Room in their comic book accurate costumes, which is really, really cool. And we see the Sentinels come in. And then the movie cuts. So yeah, that's pretty much X-Men Apocalypse. Overall, I still enjoyed this movie. It does have a lot of good things to it. Some of the cast members are really good. Some of the characters I thought were actually utilized well. To date, this is the best movie to utilize Cyclops, to utilize the character of Scott Summers in Cyclops, and actually give him an arc. I liked it. I thought Ty Sheridan was really good. The action sequences I thought were actually really well done, particularly the third act, which is just a nice overblown spectacle. I got nothing against that. I like my overgrown spectacles in X-Men movies. But yeah, the story at the end of the day is very flimsy. Apocalypse, you could have done more with him in terms of his characterizations. And there are also, like I said, there are also some characters who I thought were really, really flat, and some performances that just seemed really just off in a lot of areas. But at the end of the day, I still enjoy X-Men Apocalypse, and I'm going to give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.